So those are your presidential candidates, Terry and Tim. And we'll move straight on to the candidates' questions. First question is, what is the biggest challenge the union has? And first we're going to go to Terry.
Personally, at the moment, with all the cuts coming in, is obviously funding. There's a lot of issues going on at the moment within the university as in within the union. Funding is going to affect everything. There's changes that are going to have to come in, and we're going to have to adapt ourselves within the next probably 4 months for the next academic year to adjust to it. Some things aren't going to be great. Some things may make things even better. But it's definitely going to be the hardest challenge. Protecting the student experience is going to be the largest part. A lot of people think with the cuts coming in, it means that people are going to get less value for what they're actually paying a lot more money for. With a good student union, that doesn't have to be the case. If your student unions run well and works well with the university, we can actually make very good value for the money. I don't say I agree with the hiking tuition fees, but it's making value for what people are paying for.
And next we'll hear from Tim.
I think Terry's absolutely right that funding is the clear question. You know, how's the university going to cope when 100% of its arts funding has been cut and 80% of its science funding has been cut? And the higher tuition fees aren't necessarily going to make up that difference. However, I disagree with Terry when I say that we simply have to adapt. I think there's a lot more that we can do as a union. Like I said, we have a fantastic sporting culture at Brighton, and lots of those people are in this room right now. If the university stops investing in you, we don't simply have to adapt to that. We can say, no, we don't want to put up with you not investing in this sporting culture, which makes this part of the University of Brighton what it is. We're going to say, no, you have to find the money from somewhere else. Or we challenge you to say, why is that necessary? Sometimes it becomes a situation where you're absolutely right. We have to adapt in those cases. And that's a matter of making sure that those adaptations go fairly and across the border. If we can sit there and say that the funding from sports gets cut drastically, that's fine if it's a small funding, and if it's equivalent to potentially the Vice-Chancellor's 6-figure salary also taking an equivalent cut. That's the fairness. If that's the case, awesome. If it's not, we have to ask questions and say, why is that not happening?
Some great responses there. Next question. As president, you sit on many university committees. How important do you think having a good relationship with the university is? And first we'll go to Tim for that one.
I think it's incredibly important. I think Sam, this is something I've learnt the most from speaking to her over many different times, has always insisted to me, having been involved in lots of the Stop the Cut stuff, lots of the occupation stuff, how important having a really good relationship with your Vice-Chancellor is. Sam's taking me across to meet Julian Crampton sometime next week. And also having this, a relationship with all of the people that you meet. It shouldn't be one where it's us against them. That doesn't get you anywhere. You have a group of very active political students in this university who can make those kind of claims, and they're important claims. My role in that is to make sure that they have the freedom to do that, and I have the freedom to be able to go up to Julian and say, Julian, look, what were you doing on that situation? I didn't agree with that at all. Or I can come up to him and say, Julian, you haven't said enough about this. I need to go and tell other people what you're doing, why you're saying it. That's been my experience over the past 6 to 8 months, and I think that's something which, is central to being able to have a healthy political system. On the one hand, student activists, potentially occupying lecture theatres if they need to, or demonstrating outside Mayfair House, and on the other, an active students' union who supports them in that, but also can build those relationships with the university staff and the other departments within your union to be able to say, how are we going to make this work together as well? These are two things which are complementary. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Now, Terry, would you like to respond to that question?
Yeah, I completely concur with Tim. The members of the higher SMT members of staff that we've got to work with day in, day out, that Sam's worked with the last year, it's very important to establish a very good relationship with these kind of people. For example, on a slightly smaller scale, I went and approached one of the senior management team earlier in the year because I was sitting there thinking, we need to start doing something for people who don't want to do alcohol-based events. I went and spoke to the senior management team and said, look, here's my ideas, here's what I want to do. Can we have some sort of funding for it? there's loads of people like complaining that the union has not done this year and for many years really good non-alcohol based events. And instead of being in a bad situation, which unfortunately a lot of unions with their universities are, they're actually very welcoming and actually are looking to supply some funding for some events that we're looking to start at the back end of March. So definitely a very key thing. And also higher up the VC and the Pro-Vice Chancellors, these are the kind of people that we need to have on our side and not as our enemies, because really we do need them as much as they need us.
So, moving along, to what extent do you think that RSU should act independently from the NUS?
I think the NUS is a great organisation. Right. I think the NUS has its good and its bad sides. I feel that NUS could have done a lot more in the tuition fees lead up to the vote. As a union, we were kind of encouraged to come and lobby the MPs on the day of the vote and say, this is our ideas, this is what we do. I know there was campaigns and people outside. Myself and a few of the SADs and a couple of the part-time officers actually went up there. And the kind of thing that NUS, I think, could have got wrong, actually, and that we worked with NUS for, was the fact that we went up there on the day, and unfortunately it was a little bit too late. So a lot of the MPs said to us, actually, you've got some really good ideas, some really good views that you guys that we're not sure about. What we don't realise is MPs actually have a massive plate of food in front of them. The tuition fees is literally a tiny bit on their radar, so they don't actually know everything about it. If we would be able to go to, if the NUS had thought a bit more ahead and said, look, lobby your MPs a month in advance, 6 weeks in advance, or 2 weeks in advance, it would have given us a much better chance to speak to the MPs, give them a chance to actually change their decision and think about what was being said, instead of actually just not knowing everything about it, not having a chance to change their mind, just following what their party wanted.
I don't know, Sam or Martin, how much money do we pay the NUS to be a part of it? Is it £48,000? Or it's a lot of money. We're talking 10, 20, 30, £40,000 worth of money to be part of the NUS. So, I mean, it's an interesting question, and it's one which it might be worth, Terry or I potentially putting to a referendum next year. Is it something that us as students think is value for money? I mean, £20,000 extra money into the money that we could distribute to various societies and sports clubs, that's a fuckload of money, like that. And what do we get back from what do we get back from NUS for it? We get an NUS extra card which we have to pay £10 for, which gives us a 10% discount at Topshop. I don't know, maybe it would be better if we maybe it would be better if we took a step back and said, go and speak to the local businesses and say, guys, we're going to step out of the NUS. Will you still support us and still give us discounts in your place? You build relationships, then it becomes a bit more local. I think it's a difficult question. I think it'll be one which is worth raising, but it seems like a lot of money, and I'm not entirely convinced we get all that much out of it.
So the next question. The Board of Trustees, do you feel it has a negative effect on democracy? And first, that one is to Tim.
Yes, I think it does. And it's a potential negative effect on democracy, but it's one which is always overhanging. For anyone that doesn't know, the structure of the university now, of the student union now, is a charity. At the top of the charity, you have to have a board of trustees. The problem that we have is that the board of trustees has a veto. Any decision, whether it comes from the council or from referendum, that makes its way up and gets passed, but then the board of trustees don't like, they simply say, we don't like it and it's not going to happen. That isn't democracy, especially when almost half of the board of trustees aren't students, they're external members who aren't elected. That seems to be an insurmountable problem, and one of the things in my manifesto that I've said that I'm going to try and achieve is for us to have a big, full, thorough debate and hopefully a referendum on the question of whether we want external members as part of the board of trustees. We have to have a board of trustees because we're a charity, but it seems crazy that people who aren't students can simply tell the students' union that something that the students have voted on, that they're not going to let it happen. That simply isn't democracy. Democracy stops at that point, and it's something that we need to have a large debate on to find out what the students think, whether they agree with me, whether they disagree with me. If they agree with me, whether we can change it.
in a whole generalisation, I don't think the Board of Trustees does have an impact on democracy of the Union. Some people may, Tim had a very good argument towards. However, the only reason the Board of Trustees would actually overturn a decision would be if it was to put the Union into financial deficit, or to really, really give the Union a bad name to the point that the university would suffer from it. And also the fact that not even half of the board are actually externals. There's 5 officer trustees, which are the 5 sabbaticals, as well as 4 student trustees, and only 4 external positions. So actually, with the president chairing it, you do have actually 9 on 4, and then if there is a split vote, the president makes the deciding vote. So in fact, it's still very much in the power of the students and the people who are leading the Students' Union.
How will you improve the effectiveness of part-time officers who sometimes feel disenfranchised and leave? First, we'll go to Terry.
It's often been a quite a large problem within the union. I think the best thing to do is, as soon as these people are elected, instead of going, well done guys, you're elected, see you in September, we kind of need to grab them as soon as possible, get them involved, get them doing the job they want to do straight away. We kind of do tie ourselves up with a load of red tape, with people going, right, you're not officially in post, you can't really do this, you shouldn't really be there. If these people want to be helping and making things better, we should be facilitating them and letting them do it. We really do struggle, and I've seen it on every campus, whether it's been Hastings, Eastbourne and in Brighton, that student officers do get a bit bored, don't see their value, maybe haven't had enough training, probably don't know who any of the members of the SU are because they've never met anyone and don't really know what they're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, it really is hard to stay involved. It's like watching, if people don't like cricket, if you stay and watch a cricket game for 5 days, you ain't got a clue what's going on, you get bored very, very quickly. You really need to get people involved.
I definitely empathise with that last point. I haven't got a clue what's going on with cricket and I'd love to learn. I think it's very, very simple. The onus falls on us. I mean, we've got a group of people who have decided that they're going to commit their time to the Students' Union without even getting paid. You know, they're going to do it on top of the gallons of work that they've got going on. And the fact that some of those people could then feel disenchanted with the whole process and then step out and not do anything anymore is tragic. These people who came and said, I'm going to volunteer to make your place better, and we're letting them go. And it's not complex. It's just on the sabbaticals to be able to go out and make sure that they're happy, make sure that they're coming to meetings, make sure that they know that meetings are going on, make sure that there's dialogue between all of the different parties. And it is that simple. We just have to work a little bit harder. And I'm very, very happy to do that because they're an integral part to a healthy Students' Union.
And finally, if elected as president, how will you work with the sabbatical team to make sure students don't get a raw deal in their education? And first we'll go to Tim.
I think communication is undervalued. I think it's easy to feel like you're communicating by just cracking off emails or sitting in meetings, but actually it's not going on. You need to make sure you're truly listening to what your sabbaticals are telling you, and you need to make sure that your sabbaticals are truly listening to what you're trying to say to them. If you can get that relationship going where you then trust each other, you can have an incredibly powerful sabbaticals team. If that communication isn't there, then no one knows what's going on, no one really trusts the other person, and so nothing can really get done. If you're going to work as a unit, it's all about the trust, and that comes from the communication. That's what I'd be focusing on.
I think mainly for a raw deal in education, it works down to coming with supporting the VP Academic Affairs and their school reps and the course reps. If people think they're getting a raw deal, the whole idea of this, the course rep structure, is that if you don't like something, you tell your course rep will tell your school rep will report it to the vice president. If it's a massive issue, you would come straight to the academic affairs vice president, or even come into the SARS team in Cockcroft, or ask to speak to them. The opportunity we have at the union with the staff that we've got to make education a lot better is actually unlimited. I'm not saying we've got loads of funding, we can do whatever we want, but on the long sort of scale of things, we really can make a positive influence. Things like e-learning, having more tutor time, requesting things, demanding things to the university, not just saying, oh, well, this is what the university have kind of set out, this is what we'll deal with, I'm actually struggling a bit, but I can't be asked to go see my course tutor. these are the real issues that the VP Academic Affairs and her team, or his team, really can push towards and make things better for everyone.